Time now to get the latest trends in dive retailing, travel, and training with Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Now, here's your host, Scuba Radio's Greg the Dive Master.
Yes, that is me, and welcome to this edition of Level Up for the May edition of the Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. This is the second one we've done, and evidently the first one didn't suck enough for us to cancel it. So we're going to continue on and keep going, and I got Willie Klein, the man behind the madness of this magazine for the dive industry, Scuba Diving Industry. Willie, how are you, buddy?
I am doing great, and I'm so excited to have everybody here, and our editor-at-large, Neil Watson, our co-host of our event.
That's right. You got the Dive podcast God as the official editor-in-chief. I mean, I can't think of a better person suited for such a position. Neil, how are you today, my friend?
Fantastic, my friend. It's always good to see all my old buddies here.
Yes.
On the screen. Very cool.
We got
editor at large. I don't know what that means.
Editor at large.
I'm the editor at large.
It depends on how much you eat during a week, how big you get, I guess, right?
Editor getting larger.
Right.
I was kind of thinking of what Clark Kent, kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, he is. I mean, he's kind of the dive god in the dive industry, but during the week, I don't know if he wears glasses, but he goes incognito down there in South Florida. People have no idea they're mix and mingling with a dive god.
So the magazine's been such a smashing success. Our company's growing. We've got tons of new writers, but I'm most proud of, we have a T-shirt now.
You got I see. How about that?
And
nice bright pink, nice logo.
There's 3 of them in the world.
Yeah.
Because we used them at the show this weekend.
Oh, that's right. At the Scuba show in L.A.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
It was quite impressive. Maybe you're watching us on YouTube. Maybe you're just listening in. Either way, but there you go. If you're seeing us, we apologize in advance. I just speak for myself.
Exactly.
In that regard.
Right.
Yeah, face for radio, that kind of thing. But
so the May issue, issues that we're here to talk about. We've got some great writers that have contributed fantastic articles this month, and I can't wait to dive into it. Our cover, which is in the mail right now, our June issue is in the mail, and I'm going to try to move over so you can see at least what it looks like. But is diving with polar bears. So that is a cover by Amos Snowcomb, and he is one of only 5 people on the planet that have safely dove with polar bears. He told me it used to be 6.
Yeah.
So,
and by the way, it's Amos. Amos is the cookie guy. He corrected me at the Scuba show.
Yeah,
so we better get that right.
Me.
Yeah.
So it's a great article, and he's never published this particular text with these photos ever. Not even the National Geographic. So we kind of are really honored that he chose us as his very first debut for this incredible article. But that is on the cover. It should be it's in the mail right now, according to our printers. So people should start receiving it over the next few days.
And that's the May issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine.
Little behind. So, and you can go on the website, scubadivingendustry.com, and you can see the current issue. We have all the articles up. It's all there. So take a look at it.
Yeah. And Amos is biganimals.com, by the way. He's an incredible photo guy. And just he's kind of a little nuts, which lends himself to getting these cool encounters and bringing people with him to get up close and personal with some big animals for sure.
We did a cover signing at the show. We brought 50 covers for him to sign. About, probably bring back 48, and we were completely ran out on the second day of signing. Everybody, all the kids wanted it. It was really cool. So
I can understand why for sure. But look, he's not here. Let's talk to someone who is here. One of my favorite people in the dive industry, Catherine Castle Garcia, with us now. Catherine is a longtime business writer. She's done everything, including she's a hand model. I mean, that's how I got to know her years ago. She literally was a hand model. One of those people like in the magazines is modeling jewelry or gloves or whatever. I mean, and she's showing off her talent right now. Yes. I know. I'm number 1, Catherine. Thank you. I think that's what you meant by that.
You are number 1 with the appropriate finger.
Yes. Okay. She's correcting what I thought she was doing there. But anyway, she's written in it's in the May issue, I assume, right, Catherine? Is that right?
That's
the article?
correct. Yeah.
So the title of the article you wrote is How to Get Your Business Growing, Part 2, Engaging Employees Help. So tell us about it. What exactly, what are you covering in this stuff?
Well, this is the business education column because part of the goal with Scuba Diving Industry Magazine is to help those of us that are in the industry learn the things that we might not know. And to be honest, a lot of times we don't even know what we don't know. The majority of us got into this because we love diving, not because we graduated with an MBA. And I know myself, when I opened my dive center, I was lost except when I was on the boat or underwater. If I was working on my program buying or anything that had to do with my financials or how much money I needed to get through the next quarter, I was literally in too deep. And what I'm hoping to bring to Scuba Diving Industry Magazine is some business basics. And this was a two-part series. Happy to be in the inaugural issue of the magazine. And this one is about, the first one was SMART, which is how to be a smart business person and how to grow your business. And they're acronyms. So SMART was specific, measurable, attainable, or assignable or awardable, relevant, and also time related. So I speak to each of those parts of the acronym SMART on how to be smarter in your business. And then on part 2 is GROW. The acronym GROW stands for set a goal, make it reality, make it a really reachable goal. Look at obstacles and opinions, find out what's going to prevent you from reaching that goal and what's going to be the biggest challenge that you have. And then also what's the way forward. Or what's next in how to grow your business.
Love it. I love it. And you can tell she's a true scuba diver because she loves acronyms. And
right.
God knows we don't have enough of those in the dive industry. So, I mean, I think divers will relate to that just that much better, right?
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, it's being smart about your business is in the long run better than being stupid about it.
Well, that's true.
Even if we just take little bites from articles like this one in Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, even if you just have a couple of minutes, pick it up online or pick up the copy that comes into your dive center and page through that. Because I think just looking at the screen right now, we probably have about 1,500 years of experience in the diving industry coming at you live.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe 1,000, but okay. I'll round it down. But at any rate, that's my little bit is to try to help you grow your business smarter and learn from the business experts on how we can apply good business practices to doing the thing we love so that we can keep doing it and be profitable at it.
I like it. With Scuba Radio, I will say personally, we've taken a slightly different approach, probably doing everything you shouldn't do and kind of failed our way to the top. But I could probably learn from the SMART process. Neil, what do you think about this? Does this make sense to you with all your years of experience?
I think you should read the article.
Yeah.
Greg.
Okay. He's seconding me on that thought. Fair enough.
The reason we love Catherine so much is she raises the IQ of our magazine.
Yes.
So there's that.
Of the industry. Come on.
She's the Harvard Business Review writer for us. So thank you, Catherine, for doing such a great job.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, you
Can't
guys.
wait for the next 10 you're doing. I hope.
Yeah, and say wave goodbye. I want to see that award-winning hand model.
My pleasure.
Technique. Yeah. Look at her; she's got it down.
So good.
It's so cool.
That's impressive.
All right, our next person of interest. He's been around for forever, and he was originally the Dan of Dan. That's how I got to know him. But Dan is he's kind of doing his own thing now, and he's working with a new organization or a new company. And wrote an article in Scuba Diving Industry Magazine about new diver self-rescue device. And he's been working with the inventors. It's called the Devo. And I saw that at the Scuba show, Dan, for the first time. I ran into the guys, right? They were at the Scuba show in L.A., right?
They were, and I think they call it Divo.
Divo, okay, Devo. Yeah, they didn't have those little red caps. That's right. So it's Divo.
In America, it's Devo. Over in Sweden, it's Divo.
Okay, fair enough. And but yeah, he I saw the guys. Oh, you're the ones, and then he had it in his pocket, and he was like showing it to me, like I was seeing something secret, like hey, psst, hey, you want to check this out? Like I was like, wow, what is that? So tell us about the Devo. What is it? Or Divo, I'm sorry, Divo.
Right. Well, it is one of those things that really, truly is a safety device. And as you know, I've been involved in diving safety for my entire dive career. And it's one of those things where when you think about the fact that people can have a medical issue underwater, it is one of those things where if you do pass out or you do have, for example, like a cardiac event and you stop breathing, it automatically inflates your buoyancy compensator and brings you to the surface.
Uh-huh.
It's a lot better to deal with somebody on the surface than it is to have to spend time searching for them on the bottom. Yeah. Plus, having been involved in some legal issues involving diving and people who were involved in diving accidents and fatalities, sometimes the body is never recovered and the family has no closure. Mm-hmm. So what this will do is to give that family closure because they'll actually have their loved one back.
Wow. This is pretty groundbreaking kind of stuff then.
It really is. It really is. And when we look at the fact that, for example, back in 2008, when I was working at Divers Alert Network, they published an article, and it was a research article, actually, where they reviewed 947 diver fatalities. And 41% of the triggering events were people who ran out of breathing gas underwater. And this kind of a device, when you do get that low on breathing gas, it will automatically inflate your buoyancy compensator and bring you to the surface. And then also, when they redid the analysis of fatalities back in 2015, that number one triggering event had changed from running out of breathing gas underwater to underlying health issues. And so there are people who do have cardiac events underwater. In fact, about a third of the fatalities now are due to cardiac events. And if somebody does have that and stops breathing underwater, again, it'll bring them to the surface where their likelihood is greater for them to be resuscitated than actually having them found underwater.
Right. Well, when those situations happen, we end up having a drowning. And so, yeah, it just depends on, if that happens underwater, typically if you're on the surface, you'd survive that. If you had a cardiac incident, of course, underwater, you have that and you drown, then they'll rule it as a drowning when, if this device kicks in. That sounds like a pretty good device. How far are we along with that whole process? Is that what you cover in the article in Scuba Diving Industry Magazine?
Well, we don't talk in real detail because they actually have a prototype now, and they were showing the prototype, as you saw, at the Scuba Show in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And so the prototype is there. They're actually going back now, and they're going to be doing some more manufacturing to make sure they're coming up with a model that can actually go into the market.
Yeah. Well, obviously, they're going with the best of the best if they have, brought in Dan Orr to help them out. So, I mean, your word means a lot, for sure.
Yeah. It sure does. And this is actually a two-part article, even though we didn't intend it to be. But Dan's article last month was talking about the normalization of deviance, which I thought it was one of the most brilliant articles I'd ever read. And he quotes the authors that wrote a book on the space shuttle disaster and how that the O-rings were out of their normal standard. You can probably explain it better than I can, Dan, but basically their standards were compromised, and it became compromised. So every time they launched, it just became normal to have compromised O-rings on the shuttle.
Yeah, that's a real problem actually in diving, because there are people who do take shortcuts for whatever the reason happened to be, whether they're pressed for time or whatever, or they think that whatever that step is inconvenient. So what they'll do is they'll skip a step and take a shortcut, and then that shortcut works. So that reinforces the fact that it does work, and so they'll do that shortcut again the next time until it becomes standard procedure for their diving habits. And the problem with that is that some of those are really deviations from standard and safe operating procedures. Same with the space shuttle, as you were mentioning. They knew there were problems with those O-rings in cold weather. They launched anyway. The launch worked, and so they did it again until the results were actually catastrophic.
Well, there you go.
And in that article, he quotes the 41% accident rate with lack of breathing gas. So when this concept to write about the new technology, which we like to write about new things just so everybody's aware of things coming on the market. We've written about the Avelo the previous month, just because it's something new and people need to know. It's these are game changers to our industry potentially. So thank you, Dan. It was a great article. Both articles really tied in nicely together.
And it really is refreshing to see something new like that on the market, because sometimes you don't see those new innovative approaches, especially when it has to do with the safety of the diving public.
Yeah, it's a lifesaver. I mean, that's always good to hear about stuff like that. Technology picking up to make our diving just a little safer. Dan, great stuff as always.
Before we move off this topic, I had a call with Neil earlier today, and he says, I kind of invented something like that like 45 years ago. I'm like, what? And so tell your story. It was fascinating. I think we're good on time. Yeah, we're 15. We're fun on time. Tell his story of how he actually created a divo before it was even, these guys were even born. It's really quite fascinating.
Well, fortunately, I never found out if it worked. But when I was training for the world depth record on air, I was trying to figure out some way to bring me to the surface if I blacked out or went unconscious.
Yeah.
And I tried all kind of different devices, and I'd send them down to 400, 450 feet. And of course, everything would be imploding at 20 and 30 feet and 40 feet. And finally, I came up with these metal fishing net floats, like Portuguese fishing floats. And these things would withstand the pressure down to over 400 feet. So I just strapped two of them on the back of my set of doubles. And the theory is when I would descend, I had a 70-pound weight, and I was attached by the wrist to a shackle, and I had the weights just hold them by my hand. And the theory is if I went unconscious, my hand would relax, I'd drop the weights, and these things would bring me to the surface. I don't know that I would try it.
Yeah.
It might be kind of tough to market that today, I think.
Right.
I'm sure Dan could come up with maybe some shortcomings with that.
And just for the record, we're talking about 437 feet on air, a record that still stands today. So that technique, while it might work in theory, it's a little bit beyond the recreational dive limit. And we don't encourage anybody to go for that record anymore, like the dive god Neil Watson. But, back then, no one knew any better. So he was our guinea pig back in the day. God bless him for it. So there you go. I don't know if that's a good enough story to take full credit for the divo, but hey, it's worth a shot, right, Neil?
Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Well, okay. Well, there you go. Good stuff. All right, let's move to our next guest. That would be our buddy Scott Jones from Dive Newswire. And Scott, with Dive Newswire, it's a publication comes out fairly regularly with all the headlines, all the press releases, news stories in the dive industry. He's done a great job with that over the years, and obviously has his ear. He's just plugged into the dive industry. He knows what's been going on, who's putting out what, where, and when. And so the question to you, Scott, of course, is what's been going on? What's the hot topic these days? What do you think?
Well, it's great that Scuba Diving Industry Magazine's out there, and thank you, William, for capturing the breaking news headlines in every edition. I look forward to receiving those every month so that people can see what's going on from Dive Newswire. Something that happened last month is kind of extremely controversial. If you really want to get some attention on a website and releases, you have something controversial. And there's probably not anything more controversial right now than the company that's come out that's trying to put creative and artistic etchings on scuba cylinders.
Oh, yeah.
And it's caused quite a lot of reaction, pro and con, from various companies within the industry. We had basically it was a safety alert that was sent out by my buddy Mark Gresham at PCI, talking about the manufacturer's take on putting etchings onto scuba cylinders. Now, as you know, the scuba cylinder standards are very highly regulated by the U.S. government, and by putting some laser etchings onto a cylinder, it causes a lot of trouble for people that don't understand what the issue is. It's that it weakens the metal.
Yeah, and that can't be good. I'm guessing.
Especially under pressure.
Right.
But not only that, the etching, each individual laser is different in their calibration. Some of them go to different depths and other things. So there is no consistency, no standard. And anyone wanting to mess with that doesn't have a consistent standard to work from. In addition, the etching heats up the metal, and once you heat up the metal, then you don't know what's going to happen. So several of the manufacturers, specifically Catalina cylinders and Thunderbird cylinders, actually sent out statements to the industry, safety alerts that we published on Dive Newswire back in early May, talking about that issue. It's still picking up a lot of interest and heat on social media because everybody's got an opinion, as you know, in the dive industry.
Yes.
And there's certainly no one would have an opinion on whether or not we should mess with scuba tanks, right?
Well, okay. That is sarcasm at its best right there.
Well, I would
dripping,
think it would also,
for sure.
I think it would also invalidate the DOT certification.
Yeah.
You know, they certify tanks because they're an explosive.
What was the head of the the headline of the press release? Go back to stickers.
What was interesting is that the cylinder manufacturers have actually tried to do laser etching before instead of stamping standard or the codes on the tanks.
Right.
They've actually tried to etch it before as a test, and they found that it heated the metal up to a point where it became unstable, and they weren't able to consistently certify the tanks. So they've moved away from laser etching and basically have told the industry that any laser etched cylinders are going to have their warranties excluded.
Yeah.
So,
well, I will say I saw those press releases, Scott, and at first when I saw the pictures of people doing this, like, ooh, that looks cool. And then they pointed out, hey, you're etching onto a tank that's holding your air. These things can explode if you treat them badly. And then I was like, oh, okay, that's not a great idea after all. So that's the general consensus once you realize it. And we just got to educate everybody. Is that your thought too, or are you taking a side?
Oh, I don't take sides.
That's right. He's Switzerland.
Professional, we have to go right down the middle, don't we?
Yeah, and controversy is compelling.
However, it is important to tell all sides, and that's why we put the statements from the manufacturers out there, and those are up on Dive Newswire if anyone wants to go and learn more details about that. But it seems that the cylinder manufacturers have a pretty valid point about
they're not a fan. I'll put them in that category, right?
Very true.
Okay, I got that much. Well, great stuff, Scott. I agree. Hey, what do you think, Willie? Scott. You like the way that looks, or you think it's just a matter of getting the word out?
I think that's the value that Scott brings to our industry, is that he is so relevant because every single week there's somebody has things to say. You want announcements. It's so different than our magazine. We don't typically run press releases. We run them through Scott. And that's we consolidate the top headlines of the month and put them in our magazine. But it's such a valuable service. Everybody should have a PR plan with Scott. If you don't, reach out to him. You can find him through our website. He's listed as one of our advertisers and contributors. So
there you go.
Thank you again, Scott, for your time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's divenewswire.com, by the way, is the website. So there you go. Check them out. All right, our next guest, Tech Clark, the scuba guru. Not only do we have a dive god, we have a scuba guru with us today. I mean, Tech has done everything and then some in the dive industry, and he's written for Scuba Diving Magazine. In the May issue, he wrote an article called Experimental Learning, a Campus Trend Perfect for Diving. So what does that mean, experimental learning, Tech? Tell us about it.
Well, the whole thing, just like Catherine was saying, is that this whole magazine is just about getting dive professionals to be better at their craft. And that is so important to all of us. And whether that's the teaching side, the technique side, the business side, it all kind of melds together. But on the business side, my passion, my kind of background comes from the world of academic diving at colleges and universities. And when you look at it, there's colleges and universities everywhere, all across the nation. And, our opportunity to get in with these places is pretty good. Now, a lot of people are like, well, wait a minute, I don't know about that. I've tried and it didn't work. Well, here's the thing. They're looking at you as a dive shop owner or dive manager or something like that. And they're kind of thinking, well, that person's not speaking our language. They're not really into us. They just want to capitalize on our students and that kind of a thing. Well, no. So the first article in the Scuba Diving Industry magazine was about how do we get in the door. This one gets a little bit more specific, and this is experiential learning. This goes back to early 300 Aristotle saying, hey, look, if you're going to learn something, you got to be physical, you got to do something with it. It actually brings out and enhances learning. Now, we all get that as scuba instructors and dive professionals. We get that, and we see it all the time in our classes. But here's the thing. If you want to capitalize on that and get in the door of a college or university, this is where this education philosophy actually has legs. Experiential education is where you take any subject area or content and you put a physical component to it, an actual doing side of it. And we'll see that in things like service learning projects, volunteerism, you've heard of travel education. All of these things are really big right now in colleges and universities. And you know what? They have been forever. So like Dan Orr at Florida State University, Tom Leard at Ball State University, you guys have experienced this. And this is what it's about. If we can address the people that are in charge at the colleges and universities that would get along and alongside us with experiential education, now we've got a nice way to open that door. So I'll give you an example. Think about everything we do in diving. We can break down all that we do into physics, physiology, environment, decompression theory, mathematics, biology, archaeology, right? It's all there. And all you have to do is express some of these areas with whatever it is, your training or your travel or your trips or anything like that. So if we want to discuss Archimedes' principle, we get to show Archimedes' principle. We want to do math, we've got SAC rates that we can do. You want to do all the gas laws? Great, there's physics, but it's actually physically realized. No, Boyle's law, Henry's law, Charles' law, Gay-Lussac's law, every one of them comes out and we get to come alongside that. So think about getting with those STEM teachers, those marine biology, the environmental science professors, even the student organizations and clubs. If you can go to them and say, hey, look, this is what I do, and it can really help this area in experiential learning. Now, guess what? There are literal departments and divisions on this, and they give credits for students. And some universities have graduation requirements where you have to hold a certain amount of educational learning, educational experiences, learning experiences before you can graduate. And now you're coming with a new novel option to that university to do a ton of areas in experiential learning. This is a way to get in the door of colleges and universities.
I love this. I mean, I wish we had this at my college when I was growing up, because, man, that would have been the field trip of a lifetime. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, because I've talked to a lot of the kids at the colleges that have a dive program like that, and I'm like, man, I would have had a master's and BS of diving, or it would have been a prime thing I would have got. But you're right, it's getting crossing the technical and the educational element and selling the cool factor of diving. Because it is an experience. I mean, we're not selling diving; we're selling the experience, the fun.
That's right,
the activity. So
and so many of our people just want to go straight to physical education and try to get in the door that way, or recreation and aquatics. Nope, you can get in the door a lot of ways with experiential education, and our industry is absolutely teeming with opportunities for experiential education units.
I love it. What do you think, Willie? Any thoughts?
I want to jump in.
Okay, Catherine Castle, go.
I am that student. I was a first semester summer freshman student, and I got to college, and I was told I couldn't take the courses that I wanted because I couldn't go through orientation. The only course available to me was scuba.
There you go.
And I took that first lesson in the pool, phoned home and said, Mom, Dad, I know what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a scuba diver.
And look at you now.
I was met with dead silence
on the
other end of the phone. But it literally changed my entire plan the first day of university, summer semester 1. And I'm so proud to say I have spent my entire life and career in this industry in a lot of different iterations. But for people that are just thinking about getting in scuba, if you can do it as part of a college program, good for you, because the doors will open, and they open wide.
Absolutely. And once again, look at her today. She's talking to us. You can see this on YouTube. The background. Where are you at exactly, Catherine? You said you saw whales behind you yesterday.
Yeah, actually, we had orcas pass by.
Yeah, see?
I am in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean on Fayal Island in the Azores.
Wow.
And we're currently renovating a house as a retreat for divers. So look me up if you want to come diving in the Azores, especially blue shark diving, which is
started with a
right
class
outside
in college.
there.
And look at her now. There you go. She's a perfect example. Dan, what do you think?
Well, I was going to compliment Tech on his comments because I think he's absolutely correct. And when I was teaching at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio, actually back in the 1970s, the one thing I did was reach out to all those different departments to try to get some of the faculty members into the courses so they could really, truly understand how broad-based an educational experience scuba diving was.
So true. So true.
Great. So before we move on to our next guest, Tom, Tech runs 2 podcasts. He has the Dive Locker series, which is kind of a consumer, and then he does the League of Extraordinary Divers podcast. So look him up on his website. You can find it's scubaguru.com. He's got some great content, great quality stuff. I've been interviewed. I think Neil has. A bunch of us here on the show have probably been interviewed by him. And it's well done, Tech. And thank you again for being a part of our little fun here.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
There you
go.
go.
So before we cue up the next one, Greg, I want to explain. Tom didn't actually write anything this month for us. Glad he did last month and did the month before and the month before. But his general manager, Brooke Speedy, wrote a fantastic article. Everybody should read it. Any dive retailer on dive travel is just, she cuts to the quick of why every dive shop should sell travel. And I'm amazed that of all the 856 retailers that receive our printed copy of the magazine, only 85% of them sell dive travel that we can find on their website. Now, there might be another 5 or 10% that don't advertise it, but they can't be doing much if they are. So I'm shocked that not 100% or 105% that sell travel. And she kind of puts it really, really crystal clear. So I know you didn't necessarily pin that article, Tom, but I'm sure you certainly reviewed it and maybe even gave her some of the ideas behind it.
Yes,
so.
Tom Leard, our guest now. And by the way, Tom, I love your name, but it's not nearly as cool as Brooke Speedy. I mean, she has a name,
like
for
James Bond name
for
or
a writer.
Right?
Brooke got married a couple of years ago, and her husband's name is West, and she says, "I don't want to take that.
No,
I don't want to let go of Speedy."
I just picture her like in the newsroom of the Daily Planet or something, a Superman.
Exactly.
But regardless, the article is Dive Tribe or Dive Travel. What's the difference, Tom? Explain.
Well, actually, let me clarify that. It's the dreams that feed the diving industry, dive travel. And tribe could certainly be replaced with that when you're talking about a group of people traveling from your dive shop. But that was the basic. She gives you like 5 or 6, just here's how to get your program started. Here's how to promote it. And here's why you should do it. So I'm going to turn it over to Tom there. But
what do you think, Tom?
Well, let's go from there.
All right.
First of all, we're in Indiana, and the
dive capital of the world.
Oh yeah, our list of new students and divers in our Access database a little over 10,000. So we've had a lot of exposure, and this dive travel thing. We have a trip coming up a month from today down in the Bahamas. And just as soon as I get back, there's another trip another week later down to the Florida Keys. And those are our primary ones for this summer. But the reasons that we would promote dive travel, first of all, is it keeps divers diving.
Mm-hmm.
I had a doctor come in today into the store and tell he buying a couple things and for his trip that he had planned, and he's going someplace and had done it all on his own. However, there's a social side of this whole travel thing. And the trip to the Bahamas a month away, I have 15 on that trip, and part of them are wanting to do it because it's a fun thing to do, but because I've been there and I do things for them that, as an example, during the days that we are there, we'll take one of Stuart Cove's buses and take them to a fancy restaurant and have a fun evening as part of that. Well, all of that is just great. But a thing for our store, I don't find that trips are in themselves terribly profitable, but they sell things in the store. You got to buy things in order to get this trip up and going. And our recommendation, I had a past student come in and said, "Hey, I'd like to join that." And I said, "It's too late. There's no place in the hotel. You're going to have trouble getting travel there and so forth." So my recommendation is try to plan 6 months in advance as much as possible.
Yeah.
I like to take groups where I have been. I think it's ideal to, first of all, establish a relationship with this potential resort or wherever we're headed. And I'm basically speaking to from Indiana. I'm speaking to Caribbean travel at this point. And so I like to go to a place, and I may join somebody else's trip, so I can have a taste of that location and know how to advise. And so when you come out of immigration and baggage and all that stuff, turn left and go to the second and so forth. All that advice for these people to help them guide them on a trip.
Yeah, and they really appreciate that. And I think I can speak for everybody as part of the panel today. We've been around the block a time or two. And I've been doing scuba radio for 27 years. You might be doing it just below that, Tom, and I kid. But the thing is that, we have been there, done that. We've been to the Bahamas, God knows how many times. I know Neil, basically started diving there in Bimini. But the thing is, when you bring people that have never been there before, sure, you might, I've done this a billion times. I still enjoy doing it. But when you bring somebody who's never been there before, you see them light up, like crazy, and just, you feed off of paying that forward, so to speak. And that just, keeps me excited doing scuba radio for 27 years. Do you get some of that too, Tom, when you're turning someone else onto it?
And, when we're looking around and we're seeing, store sales, kind of leads all, but when we see things a little dead, we'd say, hey, let's make a trip to someplace in the Midwest. It's a day trip or a 2-day trip where you either camp out or get a motel or something like that. Mm-hmm. Those have been really successful. And one here, 2.5 hours away, is Gilboa Quarry over in the middle of Ohio, and it's a really neat place to go, and it's under new management now, so they're really doing quite well.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, dive travel is one of our profit centers, and is part of, just like our service center and gear sales and so forth. It's just one of the profit centers of our business, and we need to market it accordingly and get going.
Yeah. Okay? Well, all that experience, I think customers appreciate the expertise. I mean, that's kind of what they're paying for when they visit a dive shop like yours, and they know you've been there, done that, and they can, follow you along and, avoid all the pitfalls of traveling, or, help streamline the process to, make it fun as opposed to challenging. So, right, Willie?
Neil, this is your opportunity to try to steal the business from Stuart, so go ahead.
No, I
mean, Neil's operations in Bimini, Stuart Cove, of course, is in NASA. They're friendly competitors, so I'm joking, of course.
He's like a son to me. I mean, he's a great guy. But, most of the successful travel destinations in the Caribbean, everywhere, are heavy on fam trips for shop owners. Just like Tom was saying, I can send all the brochures and flyers and gee whiz website. Nothing can replace touching it, feel it, be there. You can answer all of the questions. And it really makes it easier for a group leader or shop owner to sell the trip once they've been there and have had the hands-on experience.
Good stuff. Good stuff indeed. Well, look, all this stuff and more is going to be in the May issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Willie, any closing thoughts before we wrap up this edition of Level Up?
I just want to thank Neil for being there and supporting this publication and making it happen. Dan, Tom, you and Brooke, has been fabulous. Tech, it's so great to have you on board. And Catherine, of course, Scott, with your great PR assistants. And of course, my lovely wife, but you can't see her. She's hiding behind the logo, which is keeping track of all of our time.
She knows better than to associate with this crowd.
Exactly. And Greg, the last thanks go to you, because this wouldn't be possible without your lovely assistance.
Well, that's okay. This is fun to get some bigwigs in the dive industry together every now and then talk shop.
We're working on getting some golden mermaids for our show.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, that would be a whole nother level.
We can't afford regular mermaids. We have to go with golden mermaids. They're a little cheaper on the market. So we'll see if we can work that out.
That would truly be leveling up for sure. So we're going to wrap it up for this week, though, and next time we'll be back with next month's. Do we know who's going to be on the cover for June, or do we know yet, Willie? Or do you want to say?
I'll put Marty Snyderman on the spot because he said he was going to give me something that we could put on the cover, but it might be a guy named Jim Hellman as well, which has Blue Ocean Art. So one of the two, we'll have a great killer cover next month.
Well, there you go. Subscribe to this one in the meantime, and you'll be set for next month.
Yeah, it's free. It's free subscription to anybody that's a dive professional.
Absolutely. Right. And that will do it for this time. I am Greg the Dive Master from Scuba Radio. Check it out, scubaradio.com. Until then, remember, it's always better down where it's wetter.
This has been Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Produced by Scuba Radio and the Klein Group. For more info, go to scubadivingindustry.com.